Is a transgendered person morally obligated to tell their potential sex partners beforehand that they are transgender? Why? Any relationship not built on trust is most likely to fail, so I would say yes. Agreed. I don't think it should be as high, how are you? I'm a trans etc., but after that tell me about yourself question it should definitely be mentioned. Oh, pop it. To think when we met, you were so worried that you came from Iran. Iran? No. I said I used to be a man. Huge fight breaks out and the internet is destroyed. Greatest show. The hilarious thing is, as the audience, you wouldn't be too surprised that Douglas would be fine with a woman who used to be a man if he can get sex. But the way the episode unfolds to show that he was in a state of misunderstanding the whole time, and in fact Hess not all too fine with it, is just wonderful scripting. The show was well written and performed all the way around. What show? I'm interested from this bit of dialogue. It crowd smile. Very well written British comedy that aired on Channel 4 in the 00s. I feel like if you think it's a deal breaker you should tell the person regardless of what it is. As a trans woman, it's a dick move if you don't disclose beforehand. Sexual preference is a thing, and yes, it's okay to have a preference of genitalia. End of story. If at any point you need to ask yourself, is it technically wrong if? Yes, it's wrong. Edit, thanks for the internet medals, strangers. I really hope this doesn't come across as rude or offensive, I don't mean it that way. I feel like it also has to do with reproductive ability too, if that makes sense. I'm a cis woman, but it's highly unlikely I'll ever be able to have biological children. My reasons for this are obviously different from a trans woman, but this is something that I feel an obligation to disclose early on so that there is no feeling of someone being misled about what a future with me will entail. Not rude, not offensive, and definitely didn't come off like that. You're also right, it could very well be part of the equation. It could very well be part of the equation within a certain age range. It's practically guaranteed to be a part of the equation for heterosexuals. At least in my experience, people are either adamantly for or against children. And unlike other potential dealbreakers like politics and religion, there's no middle ground. Edit, I concede there is a middle ground of sorts, if at least one of you could go either way. I kind of fall into that camp, but have rarely met others like that. There's no middle ground. I want half babies. Within the trans community we typically strongly advocate for it. Usually the general rule is before any physical contact, some debate about whether hugging counts or not, but in general it's advisable to reveal that information prior to any sexual contact. The reason is twofold. 1. It's a sigh of respect to tell them before anything sexual happens, and 2. It's simply safer for us. You never know how the person will react, and if it's going to be a negative reaction, it would have a very high probability of becoming violent if any sexual contact has been made prior. Mind you, this is a very abridged answer. Lot of details and variables that could be brought up, but to sum it up, yes. Most of us believe we should tell the other person first. Edit, because so many people have brought it up, I 100% agree that the hug part shouldn't be an issue. A hug is a hug. But there is a very small portion of the population for whom even a hug would justify some level of violence. As such, some in the trans community advocate for telling them before hugging. Some say it's a non-issue. I usually advocate a case-by-case basis approach. Edit number 2, I'm not fixing the typo. I'm a smart ass and love these smart ass comments regarding it. Keep them coming everyone, lol. I'm trans. Answer is yes. People who say otherwise are delusional of the situation we're in. Also, one thing I find odd is everyone assumes trans women pre-op. I get it's the case in most but not all. It's definitely a conversation that should be had with your partner potential. Edit, holy shit, this blew up. Haha, thanks for the support everyone! ! 2nd edit, thanks for the gold and silver. I'm rich now, haha! ! 3rd edit, I need sleep, I work tomorrow. Changed some grammar too. Thanks everyone, smile. I've never been able to ask this, and this might very well be the dumbest thing you've been asked, so sorry in advance, but does trans women refer to a woman who identifies as a man or vice versa? Thank you for answering. Whatever the gender is after trans is what they currently identify as, hence trans women were assigned male and now identify as female. Thank you. And it's not a dumb question, and I'm sure I speak for everyone when I say it's cool you ask, smile. It's always nice to see people asking and answering questions with no judgment involved. Yes. Honesty is essential in a relationship. Absolutely. The fact that anyone would even consider not including that crucial piece of information about themselves is disingenuous. And it's a recipe for disaster. But you don't get Barrow's gloves from it. Jagex won't respond to this $11. If you have visited the makeover made, you must disclose that information. It was for recruitment drive, I promise. It could potentially be very dangerous for them if they didn't. What I'm about to say is going to seem unbelievable and even like a lazy fabrication because of everything involved, so take this as you will. In college I did yard work for a cop in his 40s. He looked out for me and my friends and would come up with simple tasks for us to complete so he'd have an excuse to slip us some extra cash. He even grilled for us because we were so broke. By all counts he seemed like a great dude. Then one day he got drunk and bragged about the time he brought a trans woman home from a bar. They began intercourse, he found out she was a trans woman, and then proceeded to beat the shit out of her. He kept referring to the person as a morphodite. I am 41 and can confirm as a kid I had never heard the word transgender but definitely heard morphodite or sometimes morphodike, which I always assumed was just a country way of saying hermaphrodite because they didn't know any better. Add to that, at one of my first jobs we still had an old guy who called black people coloreds and got away with it. A lot has changed in the last 30 years. To be fair to the old guy, colored people was the PC term back then. There's not really anything for him to get away with by using the same word that was okay for him to use for most of his entire life. Emo. A big part of tolerance is understanding other people's perspectives. Yeah, my grandmother said colored people because that was the polite term when she was growing up. The alternative in her area was the N-word usually. In French, where I'm from, the word multer for biracial is perfectly fine and not at all insulting or demeaning. I truly didn't know that mulatto was not. I felt pretty awkward the first time I was told. In Brazil, mulatto is super normal. Yes, and especially in situations where the transgender person has not had any sex change operations. I feel like respecting the other person's sexuality and their preference of genitals is super important. Yes, it's best for both people involved, not only for morale honesty reasons, but also for safety. I dunno, sometimes threads like these are silly because it just ends up with people circle jerking over trashing this idea of a theoretical trans person tricking someone, with little regard for the actual situation being presented. I get the sense some people see threads like these and go yes. Another opportunity to be as tactless as possible while pretending to care about the topic. Yep, this. Most of these replies are directed at something that is not very common at all. People aren't great at hypothetical questions, I guess? I've never met a trans person who wasn't completely open about it from the beginning. Nothing to be ashamed of, no need to hide it while dating. You technically might have. Why in God's name would you not? Edit, when I posted this I was both being glib and thinking about partners that you were serious about invested in. I can sympathize with the question of when, or even if, to bring it up there can be real danger there and it's absolutely a huge issue. But when I posted this, I was thinking about how to engage with a partner that you wanted some sort of an ongoing relationship with. Yes, and in my opinion if they don't it should be considered rape. Yes, both in a relationship and in the case of a one-night stand. Your partners deserve to know who they are being intimate with. If that's a deal breaker for the other person then so be it. People get slammed for saying they wouldn't sleep with a trans person but that's incredibly unfair. You are a person too and you are allowed to choose what you're attracted to. This isn't to say people should be allowed to discriminate against trans people when it comes to things like jobs or housing but each individual person gets to decide what they're comfortable with in their partners. It is not transphobic to say you aren't attracted to trans people or that you wouldn't want to have sex with someone who has transitioned. I think it should definitely happen sometime before the pants come off. Surprise. I have a penis vagina. Could go badly, I think. Will go badly, ftfee.